Hello, everybody. My name is Melanie McComb. I'm the social media coordinator for the NextGen Genealogy Network. This is Faces of NextGen Live, and we are back with our next guest, Dr. Adina Newman. Adina, say hello.
Hi, nice to
Hi.
see everybody.
Thanks for coming on our show. We're going to be talking about more about what you do in genealogy as a blogger, and as well as what you do in your daily life, as well as your genealogy business. So we hope to get to know you more.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you for having me. It's a real
Yeah.
honor.
Thanks for having you. We've been following you a long time, so now we finally get to meet. So Adina, let's start off with some basics. Where do you live right now? Like, what area of the U.S.?
I live in Northern Virginia, so in the DMV area. A lot of genealogists down here as well, and I get to be right in the center of history. So, when somebody visits, I say, let's go to something historical and, things that people only dream of. We're very fortunate that we just get to go to them, in a day trip.
Oh, that's great. What kind of places do you like going to? Do you like going to a cemetery? Any museums?
We've covered all the museums in DC. I'm actually not a huge DC museum. We like going to Mount Vernon. Did that with my mother. She just came to visit. Richmond's really only an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and there's a lot to do in Richmond if you're interested in Civil War history. Manassas is great. We took a hike with my kids, and it's just beautiful, and it's not too touristy there either. Harper's Ferry in West Virginia is about an hour and a half away. There's just so much, even just beyond DC, Monticello, things like that. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see the birth of the nation where you are and just the history all unfolds here.
Oh, that's great. So, if you don't mind me asking, what age range are you in, to help give readers an idea of where you're at? And you can give a range if you don't want to give exact age.
Do you mean for?
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 32.
30s, 40s. What?
32.
32. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm 34, so we can share.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Because usually when I go to work, everyone thinks I'm one of the teenagers. So I'm happy being 32.
Oh, I've definitely gotten that before too. I get mistaken for one of the interns. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So we can convince her, right, though. We just have the young genes. Okay.
Exactly. I'll take it.
So how did you get started in genealogy? What's your story?
So I think like many of us, it started as, being a kid and hearing stories or wanting to know more about your family's history. I'm an only child, and both my parents, their parents had them in their 40s, and they both have siblings that are a decade older than them. So as you can imagine, my aunts and uncles are much older than me. My cousins range, about 15 to 20 years older than me. So I grew up kind of with the legacy of my grandparents and my great-grandparents because I didn't know my great-grandparents. And fortunately, my grandmother lived to be 106 on one side, but my mother's parents died when I was a kid, and I don't remember very well. So I really grew up with hearing stories about the family and things like that. So, it was always really important to me. And my family's very big. They're one of those families that have, the heirlooms of the past, a lot of dishes in my family. I'll hear a story about all of them. And I was always really interested in history. So I majored in history in college. I actually studied to be a history teacher for middle school and high school. I ultimately taught elementary school. And, eventually, I think really what pushed me into wanting to be a genealogist and really getting into it as a hobby is starting my own family. It just became all of a sudden it clicked that I really need to figure out my roots, and those are my husband as well, because his family is really interesting as well. And I just started doing all the research about 5 years ago. My son's almost 5, so.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so, like that. And then I think what really pushed me into this, so we can talk about, where I got more professional, but was DNA. DNA really did it for me, wanting to do this, professionally.
So what was it about the DNA? Was it really just finding out more about like where your family came from, or was it really connecting with more cousins?
So when I first did it, my father, it was about 2 years ago, he got me 23andMe, and I didn't know better. I am fully Ashkenazi Jewish, so I expected something else, or I don't know. I think a lot of Ashkenazi Jews are very surprised when it comes back as 95, 96%, 100% for some of us, Ashkenazi Jewish. So I was a little disappointed with that because I didn't understand, and I was interested in that, 1% Finnish. I didn't know what noise was back then. But then I found out about matches, and actually, in my case, I've had a lot of cases in my family that are NPEs, which are non-parental events for people who don't know the lingo for DNA. And there was a name there that we just don't know. We still don't quite know it because we need more people to test, but it's likely some sort of half first cousin to my mother. But it kind of pushed me to take Ancestry. And, I'm very fortunate that I found some loving family, including a half uncle that we didn't know about. So an 80-year secret was uncovered that way. And for me, that was really, I wanted to do this all the time. I got really involved with DNA detectives on Facebook. I'd probably say about 90% of what I've learned about DNA is from that group and helping people there and just paying attention. The other 10% are just articles online, reading. I mean, I've really kind of an autodidact. I've learned all of this on my own. I haven't gone to any institutes yet or conferences really. Mm-hmm. So this is all just pure nerve, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Well, I think it's a great way to learn it, though. And I know I'm a member of that group, too, DNA Detective. So for anybody that's not familiar with it, it's a Facebook group. It was actually started out by CC Moore, and it's run by several different moderators, and they help people understand DNA and help to, solve their own mysteries. And a lot of times, a lot of members are adopted or there's foundlings. There's all kinds of, mystery that they're using DNA for. So,
I think they're up to something. Are they up to 20 or 25,000 members now? There's something
like that. Yeah, it's huge though, and I know that a lot of people keep asking for like more like search angels, which they have in another group, Search Squad. They really are looking for DNA interns. That's how I got involved. I was actually helping out as a DNA intern, and there's just so many people to help. Like it's huge. So
Right. And I guess from there, I found out about the Jewish DNA group, and I can talk more about that later on. But I got involved there and I was giving advice. And then the admin approached me and said, hey, do you want to be a moderator? And I said, okay. So no, it's been several months now. I've been a moderator on the Jewish DNA group and Facebook as well, helping people with their Jewish specific questions.
Oh, great. How's that been? And what are the most questions you probably get as a moderator or you see that come up as posts very common?
So I think there's a few. So a lot of people find out they have the 1%, 3% Ashkenazi, and then they run it through. There's something on GEDmatch. That's another site called the J test. And if you put it in J test, it tends to kind of inflate the amount of Ashkenazi because it's just how the model works. But J test is actually not recommended anymore. It was just sort of something fun that the creator made, and he told us that it's pretty obsolete now. So people come a lot and say, I scored, 5%, 10% Ashkenazi on J-test. What does that mean? And we say, please read this file. J-test really is not something you can use anymore. And it could be something, it could be statistical noise. You really have to do the paper trail. And there's, using the DNA is no substitute for paper trail. We say that for everybody, but especially for Jewish DNA. With that said, I think many people who don't have Jewish DNA, they might, you're Irish, right? You're part of your family's Irish. Yes. It doesn't always necessarily come up as Irish. It might come up as Scandinavian or English or Welsh, depending on the site you do. But Ashkenazi Jewish, it's going to be what it's supposed to be. So people get really confused. Oh, I thought, it's just guessing. It's an estimate. Well, yes, it is an estimate, but if you're getting about 20 to 25% Ashkenazi, you can be pretty sure, based historically, that you have a fully Ashkenazi grandparent.
Yep, very true.
I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that versus if they get 36% British, and that doesn't make sense because, that's not as, absolute in a way. So yeah, we get a lot of that. And then we get a lot of people asking, about endogamy in general. And endogamy is, for people who don't know, is the practice really of marrying other family members. So cousins, uncles marrying nieces, that kind of thing, which is very prevalent, not just among Ashkenazi Jews, but French Canadians, Acadians, Mennonites, colonial populations. You'll find a lot of time that cousins are marrying cousins. It's also something called double cousins, where brothers marry sisters. And that can affect your DNA because you're getting it twice. So we get a lot of questions about that and how to weed out, a true match versus a not true match, basically. So.
Yeah, very true. And I think it's something that I always hear a lot is a lot of people say that because they have endogamous matches, I'm never going to be able to figure out my DNA matches. Mm-hmm. And how do you respond to something like that when people say, like, I just have too many matches, I just can't deal with it and I can't find anything?
So that's a great question. So it depends on the site. We recommend right now that you still do Ancestry, and that is because it has the largest database and you have trees. And that's really important. And they tend to be more conservative in their estimates. Not to mention, you can take your Ancestry results and upload them for free to GEDmatch, to Family Tree DNA, to DNA Land if you want. And right now still to MyHeritage, but MyHeritage is shutting that down in a few weeks. So we recommend that. But what Ancestry DNA doesn't have is you cannot sort your matches by longest segment. And you can't see what the longest segment is. So when you're working with Ashkenazi Jewish DNA, you want to look at your segments and you want to focus on matches typically that are more than 100 centimorgans. That's the unit used for DNA. And you, according to the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, they recommend about 23 centimorgans for the largest segment. We kind of say around 20 to 30 in general when we tell people in the group. And then usually real matches, there's probably one or two more that you have segments of 10 to 20 centimorgans. So if you can, on MyHeritage, this is actually a real strength of MyHeritage, you can resort based on largest segment.
Oh, okay.
To look at your matches. Yeah, and MyHeritage and FTDNA, they also have chromosome browsers, which is incredibly important when you're working with endogamy, because you'll find, if I have both my parents fortunately have tested, I get some from mom, I get some from dad, so it looks like this cousin is much closer than he or she actually is, but really I'm just getting it from both sides of my family. So it's really helpful to be able to see that on a browser and to see if the segments are long enough to even, decide if it's worthwhile.
Agreed, right. And I think a lot of sites that are also adding more like shared DNA matches, I feel like that's also another way to kind of help with that, endogamy is really, if like you have one couple members that are close, you can really look at the other ones and at least have an idea of what line, especially if both your parents are Ashkenazi Jewish, you might have more of an idea.
Yeah, and every site has its strengths. So again, we still say Ancestry, but Ancestry doesn't have that chromosome browser, which is the real pitfall for people who are doing that. But that's why we say upload a GEDmatch, because you can see there. People can run the Are My Parents Related tool. I think my parents are distantly related.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if on FT, there's certain sites, but basically 75% of Jews are related to each other, you'll find in some way. And that's just how the cookie crumbles, basically.
Yep, we're long back cousins. We don't know how long. It could be, 10, 20 generations. We don't know. It could be going back quite a bit. So
exactly. And I can talk more about some of the difficulties of Jewish DNA and Jewish genealogy, and part of it has to do with surnames. Jews weren't required to take surnames in certain parts of the world, even till like the 18th, 19th century for the most part. And there was no requirement for what it would be. So brothers would have different surnames, father and son would have different surnames. Some people took the wife's name. Some people completely changed it when they came, immigrated. So there's just a lot of things that happen that can make it even more difficult to find your family members.
That's true, but never give up though, right? There's always more records out there.
Right, and I'm convinced you have a relative that, was it from Latvia, or was it?
Yeah. So my maternal great grandfather was born in Latvia, according to the records, and I'm sorry, he was born in Lithuania, and then his family moved to Latvia, and I'm still trying to go more back to it. Of course,
because I have Galises or Gals in my family, and my grandmother always used to say they're from Riga, but that's another thing. Not Riga, it was actually Zagar, which is on the border with Latvia, close to Riga. So another thing that you learn when you do all this stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was actually where he listed on his naturalization paperwork, and I'm convinced they just listed the major city anyway. I don't
exactly, and that was a very common thing that Jews did. You might see Kovna or Vilna. That was another one they did. Warsaw, Lomza, just depending where you are. So it can make it even more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I find going through pastor manifest usually is a good way to kind of start going back. Because I remember I at least found an address for his father. So I'm still trying to trace that trail in Eastern European. So it's a work in progress. So
yes, but you appreciate the struggle. So
oh yes, because it's been years to get this much progress. My Irish side, I swear, I think I found so much almost right away. Now it's Eastern European. It's just you just keep going at it a little bit more and more each time.
Yeah.
So where's your family from? I know you mentioned that you had some gals from Latvia. So where's your family from that you found?
Right. So my maternal grandfather's side is also from Lithuania, close to Vilna, from Boguslavicus. And fortunately, they have a pretty uncommon last name, Burzak. So every Burzak in Lithuania is pretty much related to me in some way. And I have really built our tree on that side of the family. There is a theory, there is a legend that the family goes back to Spain before, not Spain, Portugal before the Inquisition. Can't prove that yet. Hoping to get an uncle to take a Y DNA test, because that's how we can prove whether or not the Y DNA. There are some Sephardic, which is more the Spanish Jews. If he has any of that in his Y DNA. So we might have him do that. So there's that side of the family. My maternal grandmother's family is from Latvia, so that was part of them, and Belarus. So sort of that area. And actually, my fourth cousin is head of my heritage. So that was cool. He's built a really nice tree for my family, which I'm very thankful for.
Oh, don't you love it like that? Don't you love it when you find cousins that are like that?
Oh yeah, cousins who are top genealogists in the world, absolutely. And then on my father's side, my paternal grandmother's side, they're also from Lithuania and kind of around the Kovno, Riga area as well, in Zager. And his father's side is from Suzdalk of Ukraine, which I found, but that was a surprise too, because lots of Jews back then also say that they were from Russia because of the Russian Empire. Right. And that's another thing we teach people, that when Jews say they were from Russia, they actually weren't from Russia proper, because Russia proper didn't let Jews in. They let a very small amount, and that didn't really happen until during the Cold War, actually, especially when World War II, when people were moving more into Russia. But so, we found family. I found family that remained in Soviet Union, now through genealogy. But I still have a theory that a lot of my father's family, some came all the way to Boston, so like 6 siblings, and I found a lot of them through DNA. But I think his father's side, a lot of them probably remained in Ukraine. So still trying to figure out. That's my biggest brick wall at this point. But yeah, all over the Jewish world.
That's great, though. So you definitely have a lot of diversity. And when doing your Jewish genealogy, do you also have a genealogy business?
I do. So I'm My Family Genie. Some of you might know that. I have a website, myfamilygenie.com. I blog a lot. I offer services, and I do a range of services. I help a lot of people, especially people contact me for Jewish genealogy, because it is a very specific thing, and there's a skill set needed. Especially if you need to know different areas. So for example, Poland's probably not my strength when I do this, because my family is not personally from Poland. I do a lot of JRI Poland. I'm very good at, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, even parts, Latvia, and reading a lot of the records. I can read Hebrew, so that's very helpful when a lot of people ask me, what does this grave say? Because Jewish graves have the Hebrew name, son of or daughter of the parents in Hebrew, which is a great genealogy tool. So I get a lot of that, and I get a lot of people asking for help with DNA and making sense of their matches and trying to figure out, why is this match here, or where does this match come from, and helping people who are the non-parental events or adoptees and things like that. So I do a lot of that as well. And, I have a lot of fun on social media as well. And some of you, should I talk about Bravo Genealogy?
Yeah, that'd be great. So you recently started a Twitter, a hashtag, Bravo Genealogy.
Hashtag. And I just call it hashtag Bravo Genealogy at this point. Basically, for anyone who watches Bravo TV, there's the Real Housewives shows, Southern Charm, whatever. My goal in doing it was really to get a whole different group of people interested in genealogy, because probably most of the people watching this broadcast right now are already interested in genealogy and just want to learn more to improve their skill set. So my goal has really been to kind of excite people about the possibilities, and especially the younger crowd in a lot of ways, because by the time, that crowd gets interested in genealogy, it might be too late in some ways. You lost the opportunity to talk to those grandparents. I definitely felt that way. I have regrets, and I mentioned my family's much older, and I didn't get the chance to talk to a lot of them in the same way that I wish I had. So I don't want people to have the same issues that I had, or just take a chance at that. And, it's fun. And the yearbook photos are what people really like. And people don't realize that's a genealogical tool. Using yearbooks is a really great way to learn more about people, learn more about the area. I know people who've done that when they're trying to figure out birth parents. They like to look at yearbooks and say, do I look like this person? So that's really helpful. And, finding their history and showing that they're just like us. And I've gotten some of the Bravo celebrities responding. One of my favorite from Southern Charm sent me a personal message and said it was one of the best things that's come out of the show. I
Nice. That's
know.
when I saw that you started getting some people. So you started researching some of the stars on the shows and showing their genealogy and kind of sharing some of that on Twitter,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and some of them ignore it, in the yearbook pictures, a lot of them ignore it, but I've gotten some pretty overall, the ones I've done the features on, I've gotten really nice feedback. And it's also been, for me, a great way to attract a different set of clients that might have not necessarily thought that they were interested in it. But when they see what I can do that way, they're like, oh, I want to have it just done just like Tamara Judge from Real Housewives of the OC. And I've gotten those emails.
Yeah, well,
um,
that's interesting. That'd be interesting if one of them ever reached out to you and said, like, "Hey, you started my genealogy. Can you finish it? Like, if I paid you, you know."
Well, I did. So I did get I got a mother of somebody who told me I got something wrong. But the reason I got it wrong was because what it says on paper is not what DNA says.
Ah, okay.
So I was right based on my paper trail. And, that's the pitfall, that I'm going straight on paper trail. I don't have everyone's DNA results. But so I fixed it based on the information that I was given and did it that way. So a mom did that. And then I think she messaged me again and said if I was going to do any more kind of thing. And I told her I had to keep moving on with other people. But, it's been really interesting, and it's been fun to kind of, I posted the other day about that person from Southern Charm, that his second great grandfather was a Secret Service agent to William McKinley.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. He's also, he had told me he was also like 10th great uncle was Daniel Boone. So I found that when I was doing research, and that was one of the things he messaged me. He said, my grandmother used to say, we thought it was just a legend, but you found it. Like, thank you for doing this for me. So like really nice things like that. And, it's really cool what you can find. And I've learned more about different, the Church of Latter-day Saints and things like that. I've learned a lot more, and using their resources as well, and finding, I always love when I find somebody who's connected because they have the best genealogy possible. So yeah, it's fun, and I think people are having fun with it, and I get a lot of good feedback, and you gotta do what you love, right?
That's great.
So
Are you getting any of your genealogy friends to kind of help in? Are they helping research some of the people too?
no, not yet. I mean, I've had a couple sort of, they've asked me, can I do something similar? And, not Bravo, but, music. So I've had people ask me permission because they really like the idea. I said, yeah, like, I don't monopolize the idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
if you can find the records, I mean, it's kind of like doing your own amateur, who do you think you are, right? You're basically picking a celebrity or something.
And that's what it is.
See what you can find,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's out there.
Yeah. So, I've gotten feedback that way. Yeah, it's been interesting. And I think a lot of people, the genealogy crowd, I try to do a little bit of both. So the genealogy crowd always tends to gravitate more toward when I do the real genealogy posts, but I do combine them a lot, and I hear from both groups of people. And I try to do that to kind of mix it up a bit as well.
That's very cool. So it sounds like it's been an exciting trip. Do you post just on Twitter? Do you post it on your website at all? Any of your findings or the trees you've gathered?
Yeah, so I keep the trees private because I think a lot of the stuff I do find, not dirt, but I find things that I don't necessarily think everybody would want exposed.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I try to post records, cool records that I find. I do what I've done is I've done features, and then a lot of times I just do a one-off blog post, depending, because there's certain groups that people are very difficult to find, certain housewives that are very difficult to find. So, and it's very labor intensive, it just takes a lot of time to do it. So, and I haven't, I have work, I have 2 kids, it gets busy, but I try to have fun with it because I never want it to become a chore either.
Yeah, absolutely. You want it to be a labor of love and passion.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do for work besides doing genealogy and your business? So what is your day job?
So I am an education director at a synagogue. It's a pre-K to 12 operation. We have a teen program, and I was there this morning, and they learn prayers, they learn Hebrew, they learn, just being part of the Jewish community. So that's sort of, I run the synagogue, the synagogue school in that way.
Oh,
yeah.
Great. Do you ever bring any genealogy events into the program with kids and starting to get them thinking about talking with their families and starting to think of those stories?
Well, we've been talking about doing that kind of thing. I want to bring it there. What we are fortunate, our 6th grade, one of our teachers, he does a trip to Ellis Island with the kids in May. So we're definitely going to get there with that group because they talk a lot about immigration and things like that. So yeah, it's fun.
That's a great way to kind of connect back with their families and
Mhm.
kind of, trade back and, get those conversations started on maybe how their grandparents came over, maybe.
Yeah, I think they have like 3 events. I think they're making a food for something, like kind of food of their family and sharing it with another synagogue in the area. And yeah, I think there's 3. I mean, it's a lot of immigration intensive events because, most of us immigrated to the US in the late 19th, early 20th century. So that's where our families came from.
Oh, that's fabulous. So it sounds like very
Mhm.
rewarding work though, and it sounds like you keep very busy. So.
Yeah, very busy, but I like being busy. No problem with that.
So what plans do you have? Do you have any like new ideas you're trying to launch with your business? I mean, I know you're doing the Bravo genealogy on the side to kind of bring in that business, but I mean, do you have any other business ventures you're looking at doing? Like, are you adding a YouTube channel? Are you doing anything else different on social media? What should we look for?
Yeah, I think Yeah, so I'm really starting to think about actually writing some sort of ebook for some of the things I've been doing that, targets more the millennial and the millennial genealogy experience. So I've been playing around with that idea a little bit. I
Oh,
plan on doing the BU certificate for genealogy course this spring just to kind of add to my repertoire because something I love about genealogy is you can never stop learning. And that's sort of that's my motto in everything. And that's why I have a lot of degrees in real life as well. I just love to learn and I look forward to that and just broadening my experiences and meeting more people along the way for sure.
and that's why we love having you part as NextGen. So yeah, if you ever want to write a blog post for us, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, I love to blog. I used to do some blogging for parenting stuff, and I did it for Moment Magazine for a little bit. Yeah, I love writing, and I mean, I had to write a dissertation, so you really have to be okay with writing to do that kind of thing. So,
Absolutely. Because and you're a doctor, Adina Newman, so you have your PhD, correct?
yeah, it's a EDD. It's a education doctorate in educational administration and policy. I just defended my dissertation this past year. I haven't technically walked yet, but I did get my diploma at the end of the summer. So
Well,
it was
congratulations.
thank you. It was 6 years it took, but it happened. A lot of life happened, but just keep on trucking away is how
Yeah,
I
sometimes
felt
life
about it.
gets in the way though, but you never stop getting that goal. So that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have PhDs, and that's a unique one, I think, though, the education doctorate. So yeah.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is I was able to do what I want. I incorporated it focuses on teaching about religion and public education. So I got to do a case study on the implications and of learning about religion on how it affects students and kind of the nexus with character education. In a lot of ways, it actually speaks to genealogy because I get to see how kids are learning about religion. And as all of us genealogists know, religion plays a big part in a lot of our genealogy when we're going through records and things like that, and
Absolutely.
understanding what other people believe. And even if we're not religious ourselves, it's still, you can't ignore it at all. So
No, absolutely, you're right. I mean, because a lot of people, the church was really the center of their lives and everything. So you're right.
mhm,
You have to understand religion to kind of learn more about your families a lot of times.
exactly. So I saw it that way when I was doing a lot of it. But these days I read more for pleasure, and I read a lot of genealogy books. So
What are some of your favorite genealogy books that you like to read? You got any plugs for anybody that you've read?
I mean, Dr. Bettinger, like you got to read DNA, like just learn about DNA at all costs. And for me, I do a lot of the Jewish genealogy. So I have a lot of, about the Spanish Jewish world, things like that, books related to the Holocaust. Because Holocaust genealogy is actually a whole, beast into itself, and trying to know the databases for that. But even just knowing, where certain events occurred and things like that, and where your family could have gone to escape, it's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you familiar with Israel Pickle's work? I know he has a book on endogamy he wrote. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things. And that's why, I make the biggest plug for Facebook. Even if you don't feel like you have any time, I've learned 95% of what I know from Facebook groups. Jewish wise, besides I'm a moderator for the Jewish DNA group, but there's Tracing the Tribe, which is just it's a wealth of information that you can learn from people. And also the Jewish genealogy portal is another one. And just it's very, very active Facebook groups that people talk about Jewish genealogy. And then, as I said, DNA Detectives, DD Social, which is more lax than some of the things people post. People do a lot of like, do I look like this person? I don't know if you've ever seen them with the pictures. They
oh yeah,
post
I've
two
seen a bunch of
pictures.
those.
They
Yeah,
do a lot of that. Then there's the genealogy tips. I'm trying to think what other, but I mean, just overall, Facebook has been, a wonderful resource for learning things. if you happen to be on 23andMe, I actually first started learning from their forums. So I don't know if you are familiar with that, but they have forums that you can ask questions and that members and sometimes people who moderate those forums answer as well. And they're the ones who actually told me about DNA detectives, and I never looked back. So
Oh, that's interesting that they were the ones that gave you the referral. So yeah, no, I hadn't
yeah.
used the forums before, but that's interesting. So
Yeah, because they know more of the specific, I think, and they ask a lot of the more specific questions. And then the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, they have a group on Facebook, and that can also be a wealth of information as well. They do a lot of articles and things, so you can learn more.
oh, great. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of information out there. So hopefully everyone has.
Yeah, and I like. Yeah, I like to promote things where people don't necessarily have to break the bank either, because I'm doing the certificate, which for a lot of people breaks the bank, but it's something I've really wanted to do and I've been thinking about for a while. But again, a lot of what I've learned has really been through just researching online, looking up things. When I do help people with doing DNA searches, I'm very good about using, whitepages.com, get verified. Facebook has been the ultimate source of finding living relatives for people.
Yeah.
And for Bravo Genealogy, I will say that one of the ways I figured out somebody's grandmother was through Instagram. I found
Okay. That's interesting.
the person's sibling posted the day the grandmother died. So I took the last name and the day that was died, and I uncovered the obituary.
Oh,
So
that's sleuthing.
Yeah, it's ultimate sleuthing. It's like the greatest logic puzzle there is. So and I don't have accounts to these things. The only things I have accounts to are Ancestry, active accounts, ancestrynewspapers.com, fold 3, and that's all just one package, and Genealogy Bank. Genealogy Bank is my new favorite site ever. It seems like every person I want to find in a newspaper is on Genealogy Bank. So I'm very thankful for that. So those are my plugs for if you actually want to pay for something.
Yeah, you definitely got to do it on the cheap when you can, though. It can get very expensive, especially when you get into conferences. Are you going to any conferences planned for the new year, or any local events by you?
So it's very difficult. I am, considering doing an institute next year. I'd love to do GRIP, and really, that's sort of my top, what I want to do. I've thought about the International Association for Jewish Genealogy. They're having their conference in Cleveland this year, so that's also on my list of something that I might like to do. But I'm also a member of the Virtual Genealogy Association, and they do a lot of online webinars, and it's a great resource for the people who just have a harder time, getting out of the house and doing things and need to do things at home. So there's a lot of resources out there in that way, I think, to bolster the learning.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like you're keeping busy. So yeah, it sounds like a lot of
Definitely.
do you have any closing remarks that you want to know? I don't see any questions in the chat right now. I know it's Sunday, so people are probably might be out right now and catch us on the replay. But do you have any parting words for the group here?
I love meeting new people on social media. You can find me almost everywhere on social media. So you can either go to my website and you can subscribe to the site and subscribe to my blog at www.myfamilygenie.com. You can find me on Instagram, My Family Genie. You can find me on Twitter, My Family Genie, or you can find me on Facebook, My Family Genie, and also Pinterest. But that's the one I really have to build on. And there was actually, for other people, if you're a Twitter user, GenChat, #GenChat. They meet twice a month on Friday evenings usually, and that is a wealth of information of learning things. And I know Melanie you've been part of that as well. It's good.
It is good.
It's the happening place for Twitter, genealogy learning. And then there's a group of us on Instagram. A lot of us like to do the genealogy photo a day, which is a really nice community, and it just gets you really thinking about how genealogy can touch other parts of your life. And it's just a nice community, and that's something that really struck me when I got into the social media, is just how welcoming the genealogy community was. Because a lot of people say, Twitter, it's so negative. And I know my husband said that, but I said, no, not the people I'm really engaging with.
Not for genealogy, no. Generally, it's very welcoming. It's very much a community.
Exactly, but not all communities are like that. So it's just a really, really positive. It's positive. And most of the Facebook groups I mentioned, if you come to the Jewish DNA group, I promise to be nice to you. So, but I think a lot of people are kind of get nervous to get involved in that kind of thing. They don't want to say the wrong thing, but everyone's really just learning. And There's no such thing as a stupid question or anything like that. So definitely reach out if you have questions. And, I'm happy to help with DNA stuff. I do a lot of volunteering with DNA detectives as well. And I'm very active on those other sites I mentioned. So I hope I see everyone there.
Great. Well, it's been a real pleasure finally meeting you and talking with you about Jewish genealogy and what you're doing with your blog and your business and everything. So I hope this is the start of many conversations that we'll be having you.
I do
Part of next.
too. I mean, again, feel very privileged to have done this. And I really thank you for including me in this. It was a really great opportunity.
My pleasure. Well, thank you so much, Adina, for your time. And thanks, everybody, for joining us for our Faces of NextGen Live. We'll be back probably in a few weeks with our next guest. But, big kudos to Adina for coming out today, my family, Jeannie, and you can check her out online. Have a good day and a happy Thanksgiving to all my U.S. friends. Take care.